Shalom, shalom. So we're gonna look at fear and faith, all right? Because they have a similarity, right? And what happened is because we don't really understand how both of them work. This is why it's so hard for us to take on new ventures in our lives, to go forward. We always want to go back to what we're familiar with, all right? But we have to understand that that's something that the ego does. That is just the mind bringing you back down the old path. This is why we always want to go back to our exes. You understand? We don't want to go forward. We don't want to start something new. We don't want to venture out in our spirit and allow experiences, allow reality to take place the way it is, as opposed to how we want it to be. All right? This is Exodus chapter 14 and verse 12. Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? So the Israelites were complaining to Moses, right? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians better. Better. So what does that mean there? There's a comparison. We're always comparing what is against what was, right? Because we like those old things. This is why it's hard for us to give it up. This is why we don't understand sacrifice, right? Then we should die in the wilderness. Because why did they think they were going to die in the wilderness? Lack of faith, and they had a lot of fear, right? This is what we need to turn around. Have a lot of faith and no fear, right? So what happened is that when your mind cannot have control over something that it does not know, this is where the fear comes in. That's why they always say accept the things that you cannot control, because the spirit wants to accept, even if it disturbs your ego. Because what you're going to feel in your ego is a little turbulence. It's going to be a disturbance of the ego. But that's just the mind, right? The spirit wants to go out and see what is there, wants to experience. The ego wants to go back to what it is familiar with. That's why they say there's a saying, stick to your known devils. But think about it. If you stick to your known devils, how are you going to meet your unknown angels? Hmm? If you always want to go back to Egypt, how are you going to know what is out there for you? How would you know that an angel was there to prepare the Red Sea for you to cross? Hmm? So you see this disturbance happen every time that the ego has to sacrifice an old thought, an old belief, or an old behavioral pattern. This is why when someone talks to you about something that you're doing or that you're doing wrong or anything like that, the first thing is going to be a reaction, and that reaction is automatic, because it is not you, the spirit, that is doing that reaction. It is the ego. Because if you start to see what you're doing for what it is, then you're going to have to do something about it. So conscience is going to speak to you that, oh yes, that is wrong, I should stop. But the mind does not want to stop, because the mind itself is the bad habit. It is not the object that is the bad habit, it is the mind. It is always going back, it's always doing the same thing. That is its nature, to repeat. So you are stuck in a mental cycle. This is why you see, if a person is in a bad relationship, a person being abused, or being in toxic relationship, or even say if it's coming from family, guess what? When they go out to seek a relationship, they're going to seek something that is similar to what they're coming from. But they will be saying that they don't want that. But the thing that they say they don't want, that is the thing that they're going to get. Right? It is the nature of the mind. And then we don't understand why we keep making these poor decisions, because we don't know how to master this. This keeps us stuck in what we're familiar with. In that way, it can manipulate us, manipulate our actions, have us going against our will, and that's the internal battle that we are facing, right? But because we don't really know how to deal with it, we keep on going out towards what we see in front of us, not realizing that it's something internal to be dealt with. Not blaming other people, not blaming the situation, not blaming the world, but look inside, right? It says, and Moses said unto the people, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. See your unknown angels. All right, don't have any fear, because when you're in fear, you cannot really experience the your true being, what you really are. You cannot experience the miracles of the Most High, His powers. All right, so fear stands in that way. Fear places that limitations on us, and also it puts a spirit of reluctance. So even though you know you should do something, fear will cause you not to do it. It makes you very unwilling. It's like every day you're up and have a lot of energy to do a certain thing, but what if somebody say, okay, we're gonna go exercise tomorrow? When tomorrow comes, you know what happens? Oh, I'm not feeling good. Oh, my stomach hurt. Oh, I have to make breakfast for the kids. Oh, all types of excuse, all types of justification, but it's just that unwilling spirit, because the fear of change, and this is why it's not easy to repent, right? And even the mind plays game on us to make us think that we actually repent from a certain thing, right? We're gonna jump down to verse 31. It says, and Israel saw that great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians, and the people feared the Lord, meaning they start to believe, right? But I'm going to show you that there's a belief that takes place in same place in the mind. It's not that believe as in that spirit of conviction, right? It says, and the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. So now they believe Moses. But guess what? It's just like I said, you have to grow in this faith. It goes layers and layers, right? So yes, they believed what they saw at the moment, but that 100% conviction, that was not there, because as soon as they crossed the Red Sea and they were getting hungry, what happened? They started blaming Moses again, blaming the Most High. So this happens to us a lot, and we have to stop reading the scriptures and thinking 2,000 years ago. We have to read it and see where we fit in it, right? We have to see if I was Moses, or was I one of those Israelites that were complaining. We have to see where we are and measure our faith, because the Bible is that measuring stick to evaluate us, so we can do what? Move towards changes. It takes humility, right? So when you're humble enough, then you can sacrifice. You can give up your old patterns, right? Let's look at an experience that we have, because probably talking about crossing the Red Sea, we just see it as a theory or something. But let's deal with something that we experience. For example, this virus, the 2019 virus, right? A lot of people, when the COVID just came out, they didn't know what to do, because we've never experienced that before, right? Then you start seeing, okay, a lot of people losing jobs, big places start closing down, lockdowns, and the security forces are out there, time restrictions, right? A lot of us were in fear because we've never experienced it. We are uncertain. The ego does not know what to do, so the fear rises, right? But guess what? We're living through it, right? So now we're familiar with it. So if another virus comes out, guess what? It will not be so detrimental, let's say, right? because now you know how to handle a virus like that. This is why all these different new strains, you're not really going into that state of fear as the first time when it just came out. But what if you should hear that there's a war out there now? They're they're um, releasing bombs on the ships that are doing transfer of goods. Guess what? You're gonna go back into that state of fear because you don't know, you've never really dealt with a situation where there are ships being destroyed with food. So you're gonna be thinking, oh, there not gonna be any goods in the supermarkets. How am I gonna eat? How am I gonna feed my kids? Where am I gonna get these things from? So guess what? Because the ego cannot control that, this is why we do what? Think. We get stressed. We worry so much, right? So again, like I said, when the mind is familiar with something, it becomes easier. And this is why we don't really give it up, because you can have control over it. When it's a situation that you cannot have control over, then it's a problem. And again, even in relationships, right? When if you're with a person who, let's say the person um doesn't have a problem, there's no problem with the person, the person is okay, is good. Guess what? If you cannot talk down and control that person or something about the person, it's hard for you feel as if there's this, oh, he thinks he's this or she thinks she's too much, right? But this is why we always go back to certain type of people with lower standards that we can always complain about, or we can always find something to talk down to them about, right? It's different when you have something that is above your level. That's a person with good moral standards, principles, values, and so forth. What are you going to complain about? You're going to have to give up your always now to meet that person where he or she is. And that's what we don't want. We don't want to give up. We don't want to sacrifice. This is why a lot of us cannot understand Romans chapter 12. That living sacrifice, the ego is the offering. We need to offer it up on the altar of the Most High. All right? When you can sacrifice that ego, everything goes with it. All the beliefs go with it. All the thoughts go with it. All the emotions go with it. You don't have to try to deal with them one by one. You just give up the ego and you get rid of it. It's just like they say, you smite the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. So you smite the ego, guess what? All the other things are going to go with it, right? So it's just like you are a person who has diabetes, but the doctors keep treating the sugar. The sugar is just a symptom of the diabetes. You go directly to the diabetes, you fix it, then everything else is going to go. The sugar is going to go, every other symptom is going to go. All right? Shalom.